Well, hello. I am continuing the second part of my journey with hormonal health. In my last IGTV, I talked to you about the process and I gave you an overview of what I'm going to talk about and what I'm going to do. And just the journey itself of what it entails. Now, I said I was going to go for the endometrial biopsy, which I did. And let's just pause for a moment because I am still in the effects of that unwinding from it. So I think I might have made it more than it was in some ways but before there might be someone out there who's had an endometrial biopsy and experienced a lot of pain and cramping. I can't help but wonder if it's because I'm just, loose from having 4 kids and bleeding for 77 days. So maybe that's it. But anyway, so I talked to her about it and I had a whole bunch of questions because I was really concerned. And I said to her, my partner Dave and I were talking. Now, for those of you that don't know, I have a life partner. He's been in my life for 30 years and we've been married for 25 this year in a couple of weeks, actually. So pretty fun. But he was super concerned and he had a question. He said, look, how can you do a biopsy on, let's say, the left side and then maybe have good cells over here, but not so good ones over here? So how does that work? Or what if you take it from here and an inch over, maybe there's an atypical cell? So I talked to my gynecologist about this and she came into the office and of course I was wearing a mask and she was all geared up and she said, okay, do you mind if I poke your uterus? And I was like, yeah, about that. I almost felt like running out of the place, but I didn't. I stayed. So I asked her, that was one of the first things I asked. I said, listen, you know what? I really value questions and answers. So if you'd bear with me, these are some of the things that I have to ask you. And she said, of course. So I said, listen, this is what I'm thinking. How do you guarantee that what I just said to you, an inch over or on the other side, there's a typical cell and then there's an atypical cell? And she said, well, the uterus is very, she used the word global. And she said, what this endometrial biopsy is 95% effective in that it will show what's happening on the right, happening on the left. It'll show what's happening as a global issue within the uterus. And that made me feel really good. She said, a long time ago, well, maybe not even a long time ago, a while back, we were doing D&Cs where you scrape out the whole uterus and then, you go in for the day and it's a day surgery, blah, blah, blah. So many women have had that. I know my own members of my family have had D&Cs. So anyway, so she said, this is more effective actually. And it doesn't tax the system and, it doesn't put you through a lot of craziness. So we, I got on the table. I was actually wearing a dress, so I didn't need to put a gown on, which was really comforting to me because I don't like to wear gowns. I mean, the paper thin gowns. So I was wearing a dress and she just said, just lift it over, slide off your underwear and we'll go from there. So I did that and she commented on my very heavy bleeding. And I said to her, yeah, I'm not exaggerating. This is severe. And she said, yeah, you know what? Has it been happening the whole time like this? And I said, the whole time. I just want to say, I know I look exhausted, but I am exhausted. I can take copious amounts of ferritin. I can take copious amounts of iron. I can take vitamins, but it feels like I'm just bleeding it out. And I'll get to that part in a moment. But so I said, walk me through the process. I knew some things about her life, so I was asking her about her life because I like to deviate from what's happening to me. And she had this super long, it looked like a straw. It was really cool. So it's long, and she feeds it up through the vaginal canal, and then she gets to the cervix, and if the cervix is open, she just pops it through up into the uterus. And on the end of this thing, she just pulls back, and it just slurps the cell membrane and the lining off of the wall of the uterus. So, and I think what would be painful for people is, number one, if you maybe haven't had a child before, that might be an issue because, you know, your cervix is open for menstruation, but it's maybe not opened, you know, and this is just my 2 cents, because it didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. And I had to make sense of why that happened, because I have talked to people that have had it done, and they were like, yeah, it's very uncomfortable. I know someone in my life said that was the most painful thing. Like, it hurt. It was excruciating. She used the word. And I was like, okay, so I'm ready for excruciating. And it was not. And I can only make it and relate it to the fact that, again, I've had 4 kids, and I have been bleeding and passing clots out of my uterus for the last 75 days. So I think it's just all crazy in there. Anyway, so she couldn't get my cervix open. Hello, God only knows why. I was like, oh, so now you close as she's inserting the thing, you now close up. Like, I was like, cervix, they're talking to my body. She was laughing. I'm like, so now my cervix closes as you're coming towards it. Like, what the heck? Anyway, so she just opened it a little, which did not hurt me. I could feel it, but it wasn't like that pain. And then she slipped the straw-like device, and I'm not a medical doctor, obviously I'm not saying it right, but she slipped that through, and I could feel her in there. I was like, wow, like she's right in there, like the depths of my body here. And she slurped or pulled and suctioned off the right side, and then she pulled that out, and she's like, you know what, I'm gonna get the left too. I thought, great. So she went back in and off the left side and commented on the bleeding again, and then we were done. I was like, oh, okay. After that, I did have cramping. It was uncomfortable. I laid low for the rest of the evening, and when I would sit up, kind of, it would pinch a little bit, just like my body was like, you know, we had something in here today, hey? Yeah, a foreign object, yeah. That's kind of what my body was saying to me, but it wasn't really angry. So I'm happy about that. But I did take 2 Advil, which I never take, and it really drove me and to the doctor's office, and she was like, you know, she had to remind me as we're walking out the door, did you take your Advil? I said, no. So I quickly did, and I think that maybe had an effect on me as well. So the next step is that I have to wait for 2 weeks to get the results back from the biopsy, she said. And here's the rest of the journey that we really don't know about. So she said 2 things. That if there's something there that she doesn't like, that is atypical or precancerous, then we will talk about, definitely talk about a hysterectomy, which I'm very open to. I'm 45 in a couple of weeks. I'm, done my childbearing years. And if this is the path, this is the path for hysterectomy. She also mentioned uterine ablation, which I was not so keen on. And again, this is my whole point through this whole thing. If you've had an ablation, hey, that's what you've had. I'm super cool, and I'm not judgmental about if you've had it done, because everyone is different. What's right for you might not be right for me. And because I feel into it a lot, that's where it's going to be a different process for me. The ablation, quite frankly, it did not feel very good to me. It didn't, she's going to have to really talk that through with me in order to convince me of that needs to happen. But yeah, so we're just going to go on that journey. We're going to see what happens. Until then, I'm taking that pill still. Now I'm on day 3 of that pill box I showed you with the continuous progesterone. That seems to help. Last night, so let's see, for the last 2 weeks, I've been waking up every hour to go to the washroom, and it's just been unrelenting. I wake up every hour. I'm not sleeping. If I roll over, clots come out. Like, it's just disastrous. But I've been taking this progesterone only pill, and I slept last night. I woke up one time at 4 o'clock. So I feel rested, but I did have a second cup of coffee today. Because I have a podcast and I gotta get a little bit of energy. So so that's kind of that. Now the next part is I want to talk about self-care. I will talk to you in a separate video because I don't want this one to be super long. So that is the end of that particular process with the endometrial biopsy, if you're curious. And I will set up another video and talk about the different things I'm thinking about with self-care and what that has meant to me. It's pretty in depth. Amberly and I have been talking about it a lot. I've been talking about it with Ireland, my oldest daughter, and a few of my friends. We've been having big conversations about it. And I'm actually using one of my shows I did on nurturing emotional courage with Trish Wagner. We touched on self-compassion, and she brought up Dr. Kristen Neff, her work, and of course Kristen Neff and Christopher Germer made a book called the Mindful Self-Compassion Workbook, and she recommended that. If you ever have listened to Emotional Courage, the show that I have up on my website, and it's up on iHeartRadio, you can listen to that, and it's amazing. But I am using that workbook because I don't really know why. I was sitting down the other day and I looked at this and I thought, well, if I'm going to ask all of you to do this, I might as well do it too. So you can join me. I'm actually on page 1. Well, I'm not on page 1. I'm on page 1. I'm beginning. And I would say that it's never too late to look at self-compassion. If you are my age, if you are any age, this is essential, because you can actually avoid a lot of things if you begin to look into emotional courage and what self-compassion is. It's never too late. It is never too late. So stay tuned. I'm going to post another video on what my thoughts are on the beginning process. So this series, I don't even know how long it's going to go for, because I'm just going to talk about this. I'm going to work my way right through this book. So, you know, it's going to be many of them. But this is me. And I'm going to be honest as I can, because I think, as I told you, the body, we have to have a connection between logic and the body. We must use our wisdom, but we also must use our body wisdom. And when our body speaks, it talks to us in these kinds of ways: aches, pains, illness. For me, bleeding. It's not normal to bleed for what is now 77 days. It is not normal. And so, but the doctor says it's normal, but maybe you're an extreme case. And I'm like, yeah, of course, I'm always an extreme case. But it's true. So what is my body saying? Why am I experiencing this? And how is the experiences of my life coming out through maybe the cells of my body? So I do believe that the body is the densest part of the soul. And I do believe that there are things in there. There are memories and moments and times and impressions and conversations that are lodged inside of our body, and that creates the illness. And I think that we can, through positive thinking, through compassion, through connecting to our bodies and seeing our bodies as a collaborative effort, that we are not separate from our bodies. I want to talk to you about that. And I've said that time and time again, and I'm going to keep saying it over and over and over and over again. It doesn't matter how old you are. If you have anxiety, depression, if you are feeling just stressed or sad, angry, whatever, this book, I know, I flip through it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be crazy. This is going to work. Let's try together a measure of self-compassion. I know this will work. So that being said, I'm going to record another video almost right away about the self-compassion. And self-care, of course. So thank you. Have a great day, and stay tuned.